Greetings, Britannia. I hope you are all well. As the title suggests, Poland has voted to allow their border guards to use live rounds against aggressive migrants at the border. This follows an incident last week where a Polish border guard was killed by a spear thrown over the fence from migrants who are making their way to Poland through um, uh, through Belarus. And it seems that Alexander Lukashenko is weaponizing the migrants in response to sanctions against his country. Now, the Polish Sejm voted 401 in favor and only 17 against. So this is almost a unanimous position taken by the Polish government. The EU thought that their puppet, Donald Tusk, would actually capitulate to the will of the EU, but it seems that it didn't take the Polish people long to make their feelings clear to him. And I believe that he has had no choice but to listen to the people, something that politicians in this country could do well to follow suit, because this is increasingly becoming hostile, aggressive, and now a weaponized invasion of Europe. These people are determined to make their way here. And once they are here, despite the media hiding the reality and covering up as much as possible, we, the people, know what is going on. And most people want to see an end to this. And fair play to the Polish people for ignoring all of the virtue signaling pressure from the EU and all the globalist institutions, and they have defended their right to protect their nation, to protect their culture, to protect their women and children, to protect their states from everything that the rest of Europe has to endure. As we've seen in recent months, migrants are running rampage throughout Europe. They're running rampage in Paris, looting, causing utter destruction, and basically openly threatening European citizens. This is the point that they have reached, and Poland has taken the very brave decision to say enough is enough, and they will not tolerate it, and fair play to them. Now, there is also pressure on the Italian Prime Minister Berlusconi to begin to open fire on migrants at Italy's southern borders as well. The rest of Europe has begun to withdraw behind its borders. Schengen has gone to pot. One by one, the countries are literally buckling under the pressure of these people who are basically invading Europe and causing mayhem. They cannot cover this up anymore. The people have had enough. Even though they are trying to bring in draconian laws to silence the masses, to control everyone, the people are rapidly reaching the point where they are prepared to go to any lengths to fight for their countries, and that will only get worse. We're not hearing a great deal coming from Germany, but Germany seems to be taking the lead in moving against migrants and even pushing them back or deporting them. France is in a complete mess, and the rest of Europe is literally struggling, and each country is trying to find a way to take a few of the as few as possible of these people, because of the destructive nature they have on the economy, on the culture, on society. They literally just bring mayhem with them. We know that there are many virtue signaling hypocrites out there who just jump in and try and hide everything and defend everything. But in the end, when push comes to shove, we find that they ultimately turn out to be NIMBYs. They are the Gary Linekers of the social media. Bring them in. You should allow them in. But as long as they're not near me. That's basically what we are seeing, just in the same way as we are now seeing Labour MPs in different constituencies actually objecting to more building in their area, their quota of migrants not being moved to their area because the people don't want it. And this grand plan of granting an amnesty to all of these criminals who have made their way here and elbowed their way into our country, who are now sitting pretty in hotels at you, the taxpayers' expense. And people like Angela Rayner want to distribute them evenly throughout the country. This will not bode well, and it could be the downfall of the current government, who really don't have a clue about anything that they are doing. They've been in power for just over a week, and we have just seen madness from them, one ridiculous law after another, which we will go into one by one in the near future. However, even from what we have seen so far, they don't have a clue about what they are doing, and this country has never been in as much danger as it is now. What interests me is, how do people really feel about pushing back against the migrants? How do you feel? Would you like to see our border force become far more militant and protect our borders? Or are you happy to just go along with the narrative? Are you basically just a brainwashed Guardian reading doormat? Are you happy for your country, your community, your town to be overrun with these people, or do you want to fight back? How would you feel if they were housed next door to you? How would you feel if you had to take one in your home? And don't think that is as ridiculous as it may sound, because one of Merkel's brainwaves in the height of the migration back in 2016 was an experiment in a couple of provinces to force people who had a spare room to take an immigrant in their homes. You can imagine how that went. You can imagine what happened, and you can probably understand why all traces of this ridiculous experiment have literally disappeared from the web. There is nothing about it anywhere, but I know for a fact it happened because I remember seeing articles about it. I even saw clips about it, and they have all vanished. Isn't that amazing? So the point being that Europe is becoming ever more defensive. This is scaling up from pressure, from aggression to violence, now to weapons, albeit just spears or sticks and stones. But this is not the end. It will get worse. And Poland, I believe, is just the first of many countries that to have taken the decision that it will protect its borders at any lengths. Personally, I believe the entire continent needs to protect its borders. We must fight back against the globalists who are pushing this on Europe, but we must also fight domestically against the treacherous instigators and collaborators who have such little respect for their own country, for their own continent, that they would be happy to see it overrun by the mob. And this is exactly what has been happening for years. And these people must be brought to account, starting with people like Tony Blair. But it's not exclusively down to him. There are more than him, and something needs to be done about it. I'll be interesting to see how it goes with Poland over the next few weeks and months. If you do have a minute, take a look, possibly on X. There is footage of the migrants literally throwing spears over the Polish border. And as I said last week, a Polish border guard was killed by a spear that was thrown over the border. This is the state that we have reached. And who would have ever believed this, that this would be happening in Europe in the modern day? As for the migrants that are coming over on the southern side of Europe, it's almost clear that someone somewhere is organizing this. It's not just happening randomly. There is footage of them arriving on the shores of the Mediterranean, being given new phones, being directed on which way to go, how to get there, what to say, what to do. Who is doing this and why? Is it one group, person or group? Is it more than one group? Is it globalist organizations, or is it also an enemy of Europe, Eastern Europe? Is it Russia? Is it another state? Or is this just happening organically? I do not believe that this is happening organically. I happen to believe that this is an organized attack to destroy Europe. And I cannot for the life of me understand how some people can be so utterly stupid, how they can be so treacherous that they would facilitate the destruction of their own society. We already have people openly in our streets in the UK openly state that, given the whip hand, that they would actually behead anybody who is not of their faith, that they hate anybody who is not of their faith. Is this the type of population that we want to see explode, not just in the UK, but throughout Europe as a whole? Because the UK and Europe, forget the EU, that's not Europe. That's just a despicable organization that needs to go, and eventually it will. But Europe, in terms of all of the states of Europe, we are all wonderful cultures, wonderful countries, um, built on heritage and with so many centuries of culture behind them. And this is basically being destroyed. And the mindset that is happy to destroy heritage is like the mindset of those who are in power now. We've seen from their previous behavior, or their behavior in previous administrations, whether it's through the Blair years or going back to Wilson and Callaghan, when so much of our country's soul was ripped apart. So many beautiful buildings were bulldozed and razed to the ground, and in their place were built the ugliest monstrosities that you could ever possibly imagine. And many of those monstrosities are still eyesores to this day. Many of the ugly tower blocks in London were thanks to Labour governments. Here in Northampton, some of them, our most beautiful buildings, were razed to the ground. And now they're back and they are eyeing up what else they can actually destroy, be it our independent schools, be it our green belt, be it our inner cities. They simply have this contempt for heritage, for culture, for our flag, for our nation state, for our very society. But sadly, they now have their hands on the tiller of this country, and that is most terrifying, because these are people who despise this country. And as you are aware, the Prime Minister himself is on the record stating that he prefers Davos to Westminster. I think that says it all. However, the fractures within this collection of morons is already beginning to show, and it will be interesting to see how long they last before civil war breaks out and they actually destroy themselves by themselves, which I believe they invariably will do. I have very little faith that they will. Faith is the wrong word. Um, I don't believe that they will last for 5 years. I don't believe that for 1 minute. I believe that their insidious administration will fall apart long before then. But every day they are in power, they are wreaking havoc on this country. And we are at the same time losing hundreds of thousands of acres of our precious farmland to their crackpot experiments that do nothing other than make those who are installing these solar farms and these wind farms at the expense of the British public very, very rich. It's all just a scam, and it's absolutely disgraceful. I do think that there will be a flashpoint. I don't think it'll happen in this country. I think it will happen in Europe, but it will spread. And it could be anything, it could be anywhere, it could be at any time. But there will be a flashpoint. And what concerns me is that every day that goes by, we have thousands more of these people in our country, in the European continent. And that poses so much more threat to the people who will rebel at some point, as they inevitably will. There is absolutely no way that not just the British people, but Europeans across the continent will tolerate this continued invasion from these people. And Poland has already taken a very, very strong position. And I believe it's only a matter of time before other countries are forced to either take the same position and defend their borders, or the administrations in those countries will actually face revolt from their own people, because people of Europe have had enough. I'd love to know what your thoughts are. If you'd like to discuss this further, if you disagree with me, then please feel free to get in touch, because I'm always happy to hear contradicting opinions. But I stand by what I have just said, and I do believe that we are in a very, very dangerous climate, and there will be payback for successive governments allowing us to become overrun in our own country, in our own continent, against our will, and trying to enforce their will on us with these ridiculous laws, with their Equalities Act, with so many different ways that they have attacked the population to put us in a position where we can do nothing other than just sit back and watch our country be destroyed. And we must resist. That's all for now. Thank you very much. Bye bye, and I'll see you next time.